Hey there, and welcome to my guide series. This is an attempt to make everyone a better player at Monster Train and ultimately help players chase those big win streaks. These guides, they're going to be short and they're going to be targeted at forcing you, my faithful viewer, to unlearn the bad habits that you picked up early on in playing the game. I'm also generally going to be focusing on some more advanced strategies and concepts rather than the very basics, though I will admit there might be videos for those later if there's interest. Obviously, if you have suggestions about things you'd like me to explain or whatever, please let me know. I have a unique awareness of the code implementation for a lot of card interactions, having worked on my mods, especially also as a private beta tester for the game, particularly the DLC. So, I'm happy to help. We'll start with these more advanced ones and then kind of move on to some basics if that's something that would benefit folks. So, let's talk a little bit about what I'm planning on going into here. This guide, my first one in the series, is going to be focused on multi-strike and the mistakes that I see people making while trying to find it. And when you're imagining that you want to chase a really large win streak, the first thing I'm going to tell you is that not every run is going to be a high roll. In fact, most are going to be pretty middle of the road. Those might be okay. You might find a few of the things you want. You might have a couple good upgrades here and there. They're going to be pretty middling. You're going to be thinking a decent amount, and you'll win, and you won't feel bad. Your final rounds against Seraph and Divinity won't be, the worst. You'll have a pretty comfortable lead. That's kind of the average. Now, obviously, there's the high roll, there's the just hit big unit and slam, and you can AFK basically and win in like 30 minutes. Those are nice. They're refreshing, right? You hit the good relics, Founding Seal, Railhammer, something like that. And then there's the other ones. The street killers. These are going to be your low rolls where you miss absolutely everything and you have to struggle bus your way through whatever the heck you're dealing with. You will be uncomfortable on Seraph. You will be terrified of the Divinity, and you will be thinking a lot. In my win streak, so for context, I have a fairly big one that's still active right now. 75. This is all Covenant 25 Divinity gameplay only. The only restarts I allow myself in this are from misclicks due to bad hardware, because my mouse sometimes will just drop things. So if my DPS unit ends up in front of my tank, well, okay, I'm going to reset that. Thanks, mouse. Fine. I'm not going to reset after like significant sorts of play and any issues that come up like that. The series on YouTube different from the 75 because I don't play this 75 win streak on YouTube. And the reason for that is because some of those runs range from 2 to 3 hours. Those are the low rolls. Those are the big thinkers, the ones that you miss everything, and you have to make sure that you are making the right decisions to win the run. Because if you don't, your streak ends there. And there's enough of them that I would say, on average, a good player who only kind of wins high rolls and, the average run is going to see a good win streak of around 15 at most. Beyond that, you're going to run into something that is going to absolutely test your ability to reason through the game's logic and know every interaction and win at all costs. So I give you a lot of this introduction and background to say that I understand very well kind of what is required to get there because you're going to be missing a lot of things. And the main thing that I see a vast majority of players, on all sorts of social media, on Discord servers, on Reddit, on anywhere that the game is being discussed, people always talk about, geez, it feels bad? Missing multi-strike in my shops. And I understand where that's coming from. So that's what this series is about. It's going to be talking about multi-strike as a concept, what it does to the game, how it works, where you get it, and what you can do and what you should do. And that's kind of where we're going to go. So let's start by looking at multi-strike. In order to show you this, I'm going to pull up the logbook and look for a unit that has it by default. A good example of this, probably the quintessential example, is Animus of Will. This unit has multi-strike too. So what is this thing? This thing it makes your unit attack multiple times. That's very good, right? You hit multiple times. Usually units that have it have low stats. So if I pull back here and I just search for multi-strike and I focus it on units, you're going to notice that a very common theme for all of these is that they're either hard to pull out or they're very flimsy. So you've got like a 3x3. So this thing only does 3 damage, but it has 3 hits with 2 multi-strike and 3 HP. Your Horned Warrior, he does a little more damage and has a little more life, but he hits 1 less time. And that matters, right? I'll explain why in a second. You've got some other examples here that have various either requirements in the case of, alloyed construct needing fuel. You need incants in order to get the multi-strike on Il Gorgon, but it goes away. Your draft just burns out after 1 turn unless you augment it somehow. Dante is obviously like an event unit, which also adds blights to your deck in order to counteract it. Spike Driver Colony has its own host of problems. It's not a priority unit. It's only event given. You have to upgrade it before you dupe it, etc. And then you have to hatch Kinhost Pupa out of an egg in order to actually get him, and in order to even access his multi-strike. So they all have some kind of a requirement or some kind of a punishment, and the ones that don't have a requirement are fairly weak or don't get many multi-strikes. So there's that kind of a punishment. Now, why do you want this thing? Okay, the reason you want multi-strike is pretty straightforward, right? Because multi-strike makes your unit hit multiple times. If you back up a second, we get out of here and we look at something really strong. Like I'm going to pull up a very powerful offensive card here that I want to show off. Ritual of Battle. Now, if you're a newer player, you don't maybe don't know what Rage is. Rage is essentially a temporary damage buff. Okay, so it adds +2 per stack by default. It has some synergies that are nice, which means that when you play Ritual of Battle on a unit, you give it 20 damage on this turn. Now, obviously, you can increase that rage, or you could make it cheaper, or you could make the rage better with a relic or something. But regardless, let's just say the basic, this adds 20 damage. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. You like to see 20 damage, okay? Now, imagine that unit now has, like, 3 multi-strike. So that's that animus, so 3 hits, right? So 2 multi-strike. That's that Animus of Will example. That unit now deals 20 damage, but hits 3 times, so it deals an extra 60 damage. So what this does is it makes your scaling offensive cards or abilities significantly better. It multiplies them. And this is very good, right? It makes you do a lot of damage very quickly. Now, the thing that you might think about is, well, wow, that's pretty good. If I can get multi-strike on my units, that's excellent. And suddenly these things feel a lot stronger. So I want to put multi-strike on my units, of course. And so I want to find the ways to do that. And it can be done in a few ways. Where do you get multi-strike? Well, the obvious choice is there's a few ways. We'll start with kind of the default. I'm going to hide the one I want to kind of focus on later to the end. There's spells that do it. So if I search for multi-strike, there's 2 of them that activate it. You get One Horn's Tome, which applies fragile, makes it so if you lose health, you die. Obviously, that's a downside, but it gives multi-strike 1 to a friendly unit. Has a big cost, but you can reduce that with stuff like Value Stone or Ember Stone or whatever. So you play this on a unit, it now gets a multi-strike. You can play this multiple times. I could remove Consume on this, or I could just simply have like 3 of them in my deck from like a Hellvent or whatever, and I can play it on my unit multiple times, and suddenly it has multi-strike 3 or whatever. Furnace Tap is cheaper, but it comes with an Ember Drain 4 cost, which just essentially means the next 4 turns you're going to be losing Ember equal to the amount of Ember Drain. Now, obviously, so if you have 4 energy, on the turn after this, you have 0 energy. And turn after you would have 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then obviously you get back to your normal energy rank at 4 at the end there after 4 turns when this is worn off. It's a little cheaper up front. It has Ember cost later on. You don't get the fragile, which is kind of nice, but not being able to play cards is pretty spooky. Now there's obviously ways in both of the clans, like One Horn's Tome is in Hellhorned and Furnace Tap is in Umbra. These clans have ways of playing around these downsides, right? You can either generate Ember on your own and bypass the Ember Drain, so to hell with the downside, basically. Or over here, you might have a ton of armor. And a ton of armor means you're not taking damage to your health, which means you never die. So you can just bypass it by putting armor on, or you just put it in the back and never gets hit or something. There's other solutions as well, just daze everything or whatever. So these are really strong. They apply multi-strike to anything you want. The next source of multi-strike is DLC exclusive. So if you have the DLC, that's pretty important here. And those are going to be infusions. So these units that I showed you here, if I just click on units, almost all of these provide some kind of multi-strike. It's a pretty common theme. There's one in every clan except for Wurmkin. Even though there is a unit with multi-strike and Wurmkin, for whatever reason it does not have an infusion that does it, I can click toggle unit essences here and you'll see them. Now, multi-strike always comes with a downside. Okay, in Hellhorned, you basically get One Horn's Tome, that spell I just talked about. You get multi-strike 1 and fragile. Now, if you're unfamiliar with how these essences work, basically you go to a Divine Temple, which is a new DLC specific thing. You buy an upgrade by taking one of these units, so Hellhorned Warrior, for instance, and you sacrifice it and you put it into your other unit. And everything that's on this text here, this multi-strike 1 and fragile, goes onto your other unit. And it costs 25 pack shards, and if you have 100 pack shards, you fight the final boss, the Divinity. Cool. So that's great. Now, all of them come with a downside of some sort, and they have their own kind of penalties and awkwardness and drafting issues. So Horned Warrior is an uncommon unit, multi-strike 1 and fragile. Fragile's pretty bad, so only a few units can realistically take this, and that's fine. Animus of Will does a minus 15 attack, so it starts you off much slower, and it can hurt your scaling. Obviously, if you have good strategies to work around this, like Rage or whatever, then it's great. Worth noting, your attack can never be actually negative once you play it in combat. So that means you'll drop it and it'll be 0 times 2 or whatever, and then you buff it up and it gains those numbers fine. Any upgrades that come beforehand from like shops or whatever do work against this minus 15. So you could have like a plus 10 that does literally nothing here when you use this infusion. I would argue that Eel Gorgons is the strongest. It only adds 1 ember cost to the unit. That's really great, right? That's awesome. The downside, however, is really just that Eel Gorgon is a rare unit. You'll notice it here, that little purple icon. It being rare means it's hard to find, and it being hard to find means you can't really rely on it. Also, this unit's really strong, so if you're going to be sacrificing it into another unit, you need to make sure that's worth it. So on the few runs where you see this, you kind of benefit from a pretty low impact penalty here. Alloyed Constructs basically takes the entire card text and chucks it onto your unit, which is good and bad. It's good if you put it into Alloyed Construct himself because he generates twice as much fuel. And for awareness, you can see the tooltips here, but fuel essentially says you need it in order to attack at all. You can't just slam this into a backline because you have to feed it morsels or else it can't attack, and that's bad. So yeah, that's the downside, right? You have to feed this thing morsels or you can't even get the multi-strike because you never attack. And then Draft is a really good one. This is an interesting one because it's one of the only ones, it actually is the only one that's not a banner unit or a draw priority unit, right? This is a common pack, which means you only see it in a couple drafts, and that makes it tricky. It's also non-unit priority, which is kind of awkward if you're going to put things into it, but more importantly, you can grab it and put it in other things. And you get, again, its card text, multi-strike and burnout. Thing dies after 1 turn. This can be good and bad. If you're playing with Melting, which is the clan that it's in, you probably have ways of working around that burnout. You might reform the unit, you might extend the burnout, you have options. So that makes this one really strong because you're already in the clan that benefits from it, right? So this is a really good one. But it's kind of awkward to find. You only have a couple chances. You're not going to see it in a unit draft trial, for instance, which is an important distinguisher. Whereas, you might see Horned Warrior in like banners and in unit drafts, so you have multiple shots at it. The last one I'll mention is the clanless one. If you have Dante from the event, that event chain that spawns him, automatically you kind of get penalties just by having Dante because he gives you these Dante candles, which are blights that make you take damage. And if you decide to use him as an infusion, you get more candles. Great news. Awesome. More bad stuff to have to deal with. So that's a big penalty. And yeah, that's everything here. So that's not, you can use these 6 infusions in order to give your unit multi-strike. This is a nice thing because you're pretty likely to see one of these units in your runs, right? You have 2 clans. As long as you don't have Wurmkin, then you're going to be able to find something that gives you multi-strike. Usually, not always. Again, we're talking about the cursed runs, so you probably don't see anything, right? And then the last one, the last way that you can get it, which is the real thrust of this video, is you can get it from a steel shop. You can buy an upgrade called a Frenzy Stone and just put Multistrike 1 into your unit. So that is an important one. And that is what we're going to be talking about a lot. I'm going to jump into a run here. It doesn't matter what I play, I just have it on random, it's fine. I'm going to use a mod to throw together some stuff, and yeah, we're just going to quickly run it. I'm not going to actually play a run here, so don't worry. This is just kind of to demonstrate something. But yeah, all right, so let's just click this. That's fine. Cool. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop up, it doesn't matter what I'm playing, I'm not talking about this. I'm going to pop up a mod here, okay? Ta-da! This mod is Stoker Deck Editor, which lets me cheat and construct things. I'm going to throw in a random unit real quick. First one on the list, Alpha Fiend seems good. Obviously, you know this is going to cause some problems. Let's actually cut that Alpha Fiend and take a unit within Wurmkin and Stygian. So I'm going to grab Shard Soul Carver. The reason I'm doing this is because if you grab a unit outside your clans, its art assets don't load and it throws errors and things, so I don't want to do that. All right, we go in here. And you can see our Shard Soul Carver is now in our deck. Great. So the one thing, if you assume a cursed seed, okay? And when I say cursed seeds, when I describe that, I'm basically saying you miss everything. You miss everything. So let's say you have this unit, you pick it up from a unit draft here in this battle or whatever, and you go to the steel shop. You're like, cool, I got a unit, I want multi-strike on it. You don't see Frenzy Stone. You re-roll it, use all your money, you don't see multi-strike. Okay. All right, nothing here. I'm like, all right, I've survived Daedalus, I've taken some stuff, I'm fine, you know, it's no big deal. I now go to this Merchant of Steel because I need to hit multi-strike, right? That's the mentality that you've learned while practicing this game so much. I need to hit multi-strike. You go here. Cool, you miss it. You re-roll the shop, you get large stone, endless, it's completely useless to you. You're like, crap, okay, I missed it. I'm fine, you know what, I can make it through ring 4, cool. You go through ring 4, there's nothing here, fine. You go through ring 5. All right, you've barely survived Harvesters of Death. You're really lacking in the scaling department. You really need to see that multi-strike is what you're immediately thinking. And you're going to go to this one. And you're going to miss multi-strike again because the run is cursed. And now that you've looked at 3 steel shops and haven't seen your multi-strike yet, you're probably pissed, right? And this is the real bait, right? You're probably frustrated and you're like, man, this sucks. I need multi-strike to win. And so you're gonna be like, all right, crap, where's my next steel shops? You're gonna say to yourself, I have to go to these 2 steel shops. I have to find the multi-strike in order to win. I don't know, by some miracle survive fell. You're on the back burner, I don't know, you've got like 12 pyre HP left and you're like, okay, please. You go to the Merchant of Steel, you miss multi-strike, and you leave, and you're just like, oh my gosh, how do I get by this? You're pissed at this point, just absolutely livid. You're angry at Monster Train, you're probably complaining, and your run is probably really weak at this point. You might be able to muscle through floor 7 because floor 7 in general is not that difficult. The combats are tough, but as long as you can make it to Relentless, you're probably going to win usually. I mean, if you killed Fel, you're probably going to be able to beat this boss, as long as you don't get destroyed or take like a greedy trial or something. And so you make it through this, and you're like, you have Seraph the Chase, and you have the Divinity right at the end here. And you're like, okay, I have 1 shot left. And you go to this 5th. Count them up. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steel shops. And you miss multi-strike again. You exclaim in anger. You're like, screw this game, this stupid game. And you take like a +10 on your unit, your Shard Soul Carver, because you have nothing else you can do. And at this point, your run is extremely weak. You go into Seraph the Chased. You probably die here, or if by some miracle you win, you're going to die at the Divinity. And you're going to be mad. You're probably going to post about it on Reddit or Discord. You're going to make some kind of a suggestion to say, yo, you can't make me rely on Multistrike. I miss on these shops. It feels bad. Game is bad. And you get upset. That is the story that I read on so many videos. And it's like, crap, what the heck? The bait here is that you have screwed your own run by hunting Multistrike so much. You have spent way too much time digging your heels in, telling yourself that you need Multistrike, and you got yourself killed. This low roll of a run could very easily have succeeded if you had just given up on Multistrike and only looked for it on steel shops that provided a lot of value. So a good one is like, you're probably going to go to the steel shop in Ring 2. You don't always have to. Like in this start, right? I have Crypt Builders, I have Shelters, and Soul Crushing Guild. That's a really strong start, right? I could go to this magic shop if maybe this first trial is a unit banner. I have some kind of a decent unit. I could go here and buff, like, I don't know, Crypt Builder or something. Fine. Or I could go to this steel shop. Pretty common to hit this one up. You might see something. You might land your Multistrike, but let's say you miss. Okay, fine, you miss. You don't need it here. You take like this unit or whatever, and you move on. At this stage, you don't even have a steel banner, so you steel shop, so you don't care. You just kind of go to whatever one you think is the most valuable. Cool. Maybe you take this artifact, whatever. You kill Daedalus. And then after Daedalus, you're looking here. Now, depending on the state of your run, you're probably either feeling strong or you're feeling weak. I'm going to assume you're feeling weak because you missed Multistrike and you're looking for it. Now, this side is really, really strong. You have removals, which makes your deck more consistent. You have a steel shop, which is good alignment. You might see a good unit here, like a Siren or something that you want to upgrade. This is really strong. So this is a good steel shop to take, right? Especially because unless you're like desperate for a high roll or you're about like at 2 HP or something, you really don't need these things. These are going to be low impact. So this is a good steel shop. You're not going to be punished for this. Where you're getting punished is starting here, where you maybe this trinket shop isn't a ton of value, but you're giving up on removals for like probably a 10 gold cavern, some random gold, and a bad steel shop. You walk out of this ring feeling weak because you get almost nothing. Whereas at least here you get removals. Maybe you see a good relic. You have like, I don't know, 300 gold. You re-roll it. I don't know. There's a lot of good hits here. You might even be able to see like Founding Seal, right? So like just by going here, you've given up on any of the relics in this shop. Several of which could be high rolls, right? Because Wurmkin has some good ones. Maybe you're using those Echo synergies. Stygian has a good number of them as well. Maybe you hit Founding Seal in this shop. And obviously, you know, if it's a cursed seed, maybe you won't. But if you're tunnel visioning Multistrike, you lose. I will probably, in this run, if I'm playing it, I would probably give up here, up at ring 4, because that's a really good one, and try this here and be like, you know what, to hell with it. Next, this one's okay, but you're giving up a really good Merchant of Magic with removals. This is fine, Pyre HP, you know. Going here back to back and missing both times, you just feel like you're getting low value. Now there obviously could be some high rolls in these caverns, fine, but it's not like it's adding too terribly much. Let's say your run is truly cursed and like you get 10 gold here from the, the potion event or something, and here you get, I don't know, purge a card, gain a card or something dumb, and you get nothing good out of it, or maybe you get something fine, it doesn't matter. It's like just a removal basically. So you're giving up a lot of removals here, which make your deck more consistent. You're giving up really good opportunity to hit trinkets. Maybe you have a lot of money, and you're giving up on this Merchant of Magic. And, you know, I probably need to be upgrading my spells because I'm Stygian and I'm Wurmkin, and I want these to be good. Hit a double stack on Soul Crushing Guilt or something. So the bait is really that people kill themselves regularly by thinking they need Multistrike when they don't. And the runs that they're playing have avenues to victory that maybe they're not clean, but they get there. Even here, this is a really good one, right? You give up a good Hellvent, a great Vortex, and this Merchant of Magic that you might need. This is a really strong path, this right side. Whereas this is just some HP and some boons. You get like no value here. And if you miss the thing you want here, then you're totally just getting nothing. You get bodied by Seraph in that case. So that's kind of the real bait here, is that people kill themselves trying to find it, and it's all context sensitive, right? Like in this run, these might be awesome. You might have removals, a cavern, and a steel shop here, and that would be awesome, right? Like, don't feel bad taking this because that's a ton of value. You need to be valuing these removals a lot, because if your deck sucks, you need to remove the bad stuff. I need to get rid of these Echo Breaks, these Frozen Lances. I need to be pulling in only good cards, whatever works with my strategy, right? So the real trick here is just stop hunting for multi-strike at shops so hard, right? I would only, in this run, look here at ring 1, or ring 2 rather. I would look here at ring 4, because that's a really good one. And I would definitely go, let's see, I might, depending on like how much money I had here, you could maybe make the argument for this one, because if you don't have enough money for a trinket, then this is pretty bad, right? You have 100 gold, you're like, okay. If you have 100 gold, maybe you go here, you don't have a lot to work with, but you could at least reroll and try to get the merchant. You could always take this mid thing as well, this boons, as you need it. There's actually, like, with the boons, this is still a pretty strong merchant of trinkets. It depends, right? And you're going to have some runs that feel like they need multi-strike more than others, right? You're going to think about it. If I'm like running an in-camp plan here, you might be thinking, geez, I need multi-strike on my sirens. One thing that people sometimes forget is that duping a unit is basically multi-strike, right? So in a worst possible case, I could go to this Hellvent and just get a second siren. And it's not great, right? But get good at math and know what you need in order to win. Maybe you don't need that multi-strike. Maybe just like incant armor 2 is fine. Or something. So there really is no... The trick that goes in here is just be smart about this. A lot of my runs that are cursed seeds are one because I said I'm not seeing multi-strike. I need to win without it. And there are lines to do so. I mean, even in this clan combo, this is a really good one, right? Like, this you have Stygian, so you spells. I'm just going to briefly kind of look at the clans, what is a good win? What is a good way of clearing the waves, right? Because you need to be doing 600 or so damage a wave to 4 to 5 units and the Divinity. And the obvious thing is, geez, I need a sweep unit, right? That's a good one because you hit everything at once. Cool, I can just murder everything. Or a bunch of multi-strike, or something like trample, or whatever. But there are a lot of cards that are outside, not on your units at all, that help you get there. I'm just going to pick out a few random ones, like things like Impalade. If you have a few imps, this thing just slaps for 1 ember. That's great. You can use Ascend and Descend to manipulate floors, right? So you can ascend like tanks out of the way, which is great. You could throw imps with the Impressive, right? That's a tune, so that's strong. We're going to get to the one that I really want to show off. Tiresome Climb is excellent here. You can just daze it and send it up to the pyre and it dies. You can battering ram something away. You can see an Inferno and click it, and whenever you draw this thing, you kind of just neuter a wave, which is great. So that's just Hellhorned. That's a solution there. On what is this, Awoken? You've got other things as well. For here, there's a lot of solutions. You can, Glimmer with a +30 and holdover will destroy a lot of the back lines, so you only have to deal with a couple heavies. You have that. Where is it? I want to show you Ensnare. Yeah, this card is nuts. Let's say you miss all the good stuff. You get a double stack on Ensnare, you dupe this thing, right? And then you just play this on units you don't want to deal with, and they go away. If you get something like double stack holdover and dupe this, you can just remove multiple units from the combat entirely. They never go up. It's awesome. This is a really strong solution. It's creative, right? You're not actually killing things, you just kind of hide them. That's a good one. Restoration Detonation with a +30 has really good returns. You heal yourself for 40, and that blasts the front line for 200, which is ridiculously good. This clan has a ton of sweepers too, right? So if you have a strong enough buff plan, you just, I don't know, kill everything with sweep. You don't even need multi-strike at that point, though obviously it helps. So those are probably the big ones. Some of these other ones are kind of fine, like Bramble Lash if you have spikes, whatever. You can move stuff around is still fine. Yeah. Stygian is like the easiest one to answer this with, right? Because you have so many strong spells that just kill things. Ice and Pyre, right? That's so strong. Ice Storm is ridiculous. This Siren Song just kind of sends anything on the top floor to the Pyre, and then Pyre kills it. Anything that says attuned is really good. They give this thing a +30 and it just destroys something. Crystallis is good. Ancient Synergy is incredible. Crypt Builder is good. Ice Tornado is great. Look how many cards there are that solve this, right? You just have so many cards that solve this in Clan. And you even have like other units like, where is he? Titan Sentry, our hot shark friend. Yeah, look, he's hot, right? He kills backlines. He also chunks heavies. He does a lot of damage. This thing's great. You see him? He's a solution to a lot of these problems too. Umbra probably has the biggest struggle, but they're also the only clan that conveniently gets access to Trample, which is basically multi-strike, right? So they have Furnace Tap, which is itself a multi-strike, which is great. So you miss it in shops, you just take that. And then Umbra Stone. This applies Trample. So if you do like 700 damage or something, this just kills the floor. You don't even need multi-strike, right? And they have some decent spells too. Nothing like amazing, but they have some. You know, like Blazing Bolts is fine. You can give it a +30, hits 4 times, sure. Excavation Eruption's fine. Like, these are not amazing, but they do the job. They'll get there, right? You can do some weird stuff with Cave-In. You always have the Void Binding plan to slap things. You know, Perils of Production with Void Binding and Furnace Tap is a very classic Ember Drain plan to just win. So you have all those options, and you can kind of do big floor and put like something in the back that hurts. So you can kind of get there. This is probably the weakest clan for it, but even then, you know, even if you miss it on this clan, you have your other clan, right? And it can help out. So there's that. Melting is just amazing here. You can just destroy stuff. You've got Fade who just wins. You've got Rector who can just slap something with Burnout. You have Dripfall to lock things down. You have Crushing Demise, which just kills something outright. This is so strong. Anything that uses Extinguishes, you can kind of do crazy things with Entombed Explosive, with Legion of Wax, or whatever. You don't need Multistrike. It does not matter one bit. Anything dies, you can bring it back. It's fine. Let's see, Subsuming Blade's okay. Memento Mori's terrible. This is not your answer. You have self-scaling in halls. It's like you have a lot of solutions here. Mortal Entrapment is a good card that I think people overlook. You can double stack this thing and get Dazed 6, right? And then just slam this into an enemy and let it go to the Pyre. Right, and then Wurmkin has its own kind of host of things with like Reap, or it has Trample on the Bog Wormling. Good scaling. You can get there. You also have Daze cards as well, and really strong spells. 50 damage with Attuned. There's a lot there. Obviously, there's other things like you have a sweep unit there. There's a lot. So the thing that I'm trying to get at here is that there are solutions to winning with whatever clan combo you have, and you should use them and quickly identify when you're making mistakes. If you're at this point here and you go, geez, I have 30 cards in my deck, half of them are bad, I'm going to look for multi-strike. Maybe rethink that decision, right? Rethink that decision, weigh the value of all these things together, and then look over here and go, okay, well, maybe I could hit a good relic instead. Maybe I have like 2 HP, and maybe I just remove some of those bad cards. And maybe I see some better value that way. The bigger hit is going to be when you have a Vortex on the opposite side, right? These removals are so valuable. And a good shop here for Magic. I maybe have like Ancient Synergy or something, making it cheaper, better. So you got a lot there. And it's pretty straightforward, I think. So that's more or less everything I kind of wanted to cover here. I think that the big summary that I want to give you is that the bait is looking for these things at every single steel shop, even when you have other mechanisms of winning. And the only trick here is just to actually objectively look and think about the value of an entire ring before you commit. Don't just go, geez, I need multi-strike, and slam this. The other thing I'll tell you is that depending on your units, it's better to go into steel and to steel shops if you have multiple large upgrades, so those rightmost upgrades that you benefit from. So like a good example here is, let's say I had Titan Sentry, right? Toss him in my deck. So I have Titan Sentry and I have Shard Soul Carver. This means I take multi-strike well, which is great. This also means I take Endless well. And if you're walking into a steel shop with 2 good upgrades you could hit, your chances of hitting them are really high. You're going to hit 1 most likely. and you'll always see good value from that shop. That is an important way to look at things because it means that even if you miss, you get something. What you don't want is the case where you're down here, you go here, and nothing is good. If you don't power up at all, you have lost a lot of ground here, and you need to make that up elsewhere. And sometimes you can't, and that will end your streak. So that's pretty much it. I think I see this happen a lot where people mess it up, and yeah, obviously that's pretty much all I'm going to cover here. So if you have ideas for future demos or demos, guides, anything like that, it's impossible for me to make a realistically short video. Like, seriously, what the hell is wrong with me? 35 minutes and I'm just talking about multi-strike here. Anyway, hopefully this was useful to you. As always, you can leave a comment if you want to discuss this with me further. I'll happily respond to all of those. Or if you have ideas for things you want me to cover, maybe you want some insight on something, let me know. I'm happy to kind of review the way I approach runs like this. So that's all I've got for you. We will see you in the next one, all right? Take care, folks.